Yes, I was.
And in the afternoon, did you interview Eric Menendez?
Yes.
Do counsel stipulate that the court reporter does not have to transcribe the tape?
Yes.
All right, let's go back, just again, the date that this interview took place.
This is September 17th.
Let's have it from the witness.
September 17th of 1989.
Yeah, where?
It's in Cranberry, New Jersey,
Where?
at the residence of Terry and Carlos Barral.
And can we have a foundation, Mr. Curiano, as to who was present during this conversation?
Yes, Your Honor. During this interview, who was present in the actual room in which you were conducting this interview?
It's my partner, Detective Thomas Lenahan, Eric Menendez, and myself.
Was it in a residence?
It was in a residence, that's correct.
Were there other people at the residence?
Yes.
Can you hear other people conversing in the background?
At some portions, yes.
And who would those people be?
It was Carlos and Terry Baralt, and at different times, different people. I don't know exactly who was in the house.
In this conversation, was Eric Menendez in custody?
He was not.
May I play the tape, Your Honor?
How long is this tape recording? Approximately.
The interview was approximately an hour.
Okay. All right, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Detective Zoller, is this an edited version of that tape?
Objection, Your Honor.
Objection sustained. You know, we can discuss that later on, Mr. Curiano.
Very well.
Cranberry, New Jersey, speaking to Eric Menendez. It's now 4:20 a.m. on September 17th, 1989.
Actually PM.
Or PM, rather. And Detective Zoller is also present, and we're going to be conducting an interview now with Eric.
What we're doing with this investigation, we're finding out everything that we can about your mother and your father. And obviously that involves you and Lyle. So we talked to a lot of your friends. We talked to Craig Signorelli, I'm sure you know him, and some other of your Cal Bass's friends. We talked to Lyle's friends.
Robin, if you can tell me. I've never let me talk, I just want to know.
Talked to Robin.
I talked to Robin and talked to Becky.
And talked to Becky, yeah.
Right there would, they would be close to me.
A lot of people that we want to talk to that we haven't yet, which we probably will, have left for school. So, as far as we talked to a couple of your tennis coaches,
Hobie,
talked to Hobie, we talked to
Craig Heinrich,
yes,
and
the guy that
Gmail. Who? Gmail.
No,
Gmail.
who was the tennis coach at the with Hobie?
Dr. Whitcomb. Debbie Arnaz. No, Debbie McBride.
No, the guy
Doug.
Doug Doss.
Doug Doss.
Yeah, that's the guy.
Okay, yeah. My other two coaches were Dr. Whitline, and Gmail. Yeah, just Gene, my basic coach.
But, you know, that's why we're doing that. So if people come and say, hey, the police were talking about you, well, we're talking to them about you because they don't know your dad. You know, they should get some insight from you. You know, and we get a little pieces from everybody we talk to. You know, we're not expecting to get a whole ton of information from Doug Doss.
Did you talk to Casey Williams?
No. That's all I have is his phone number. I just have
But I don't know what his consultants.
And everybody we've spoken to says, oh, we don't know anything, but every time we speak to somebody, there's just a little bit something that we didn't know before.
you hear somebody say something, you know, we're hoping we're going to be very honest with you. And we're hoping that you're going to be very honest with us. and that we have a good enough rapport back and forth with each other that if you have a question for us, you can call us directly at any time and expect us to, if we're not at the phone, to get back to you, which we will. And, we're going to do the same for you. But we want to have that rapport with you because we're not on the opposite side of you. We're dealing basically not for you, but we're on your side. We're not trying to nail you or anybody. That's not our purpose. Although we're the police, and a lot of times, people that aren't police think that the police are, the jerks or whatever. That we don't want here. Generally we are, but this time we're not going to be with you. We may be with somebody else. So, we want to be honest with you, and we want you to be honest with us. So, that's where we're coming from. And as I said, if you hear that we interview somebody or talk to somebody, you go, well, what in the world are they talking to them about?
You can talk to whoever you want.
Yeah,
I know
but
some people, like Craig and my dad didn't have a good rapport.
Yes.
Well, we take every conversation we have with a grain of salt, because we realize that people aren't with certain people because of reasons.
Yeah, generally we hear the same thing a couple of times, which reinforces it. Now, if you have a problem with some guy, he says one thing about you, well, it's going to be contrary to everything else. So let's, we'll take the good out of that conversation. But that's, don't worry about that. We go, when we investigate a case and when we file a case and when we prosecute a case, we can't go with innuendos. We have to go with the facts, basically. So that's what we are. A lot of things that we're going to talk to you about are questions that came up at the crime scene, things that you did, that Lyle did. We know it's going to be hard. We're going to ask questions that are particularly going to be hard for you, as far as the relating back to that night. And we apologize ahead of time. We don't do it purposely to drag you through the coals to have you go through this again, so that's not our purpose at all. So as I said, we apologize ahead of time. And it has to be done. You went fishing the day before also? Y'all went out that day boat? What time did you come back that night?
Late. It was at night.
Midnight?
No, probably somewhere between 9 and 10, something like that. Shark fishing.
You're shark fishing?
Here. Here in Cool Boy.
Shark go fishing before?
We left it. No, yeah, not shark fishing. We left at like 4 or 5 or something. So it was a 7 hour. We talked about it.
Had your dad like to fishing?
Well, it was his idea.
Yeah, but we heard why it was his idea, which we'll share with you in a second.
He was, I guess it was kind of boring. We caught one shark and it was pretty exciting.
Who caught it?
Oh, well, we had different fishing lines.
Oh.
And you just set them up and you wait. You basically don't reel it in and like the fishing line, you just wait. The sharks come to you. He's kind of anxious to get out of there after the end because he's 40, so.
We heard that your dad wanted to go fishing to learn because there was a client that he had and he wanted to learn so he could get on the good side of the client.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm sure this was something that was thought about months before, and due to the time was coming close, and was going to have to do it.
Yeah. So, yeah, I wanted to learn. Exactly. They went deep sea fishing once before.
Oh, that's the one that's up on the wall?
Yeah.
Okay.
My mom caught that and my dad had that. No, they caught that. They had all the pictures of them on the first.
And, okay.
A pair of jeans. I have a... Let's see if we can say that. The hole here comes out back here, and the hole here comes out back here. Almost like a bullet hole or something.
Where's this at?
Change your hair.
Where were they there?
I don't know. I'm wondering, possibly they've been in the room. Or...
Where did you get them from?
They're my jeans, and I don't remember. I guess they were.
Before we go, get them. Let me see 'em.
All right, they're upstairs. And I don't know. I don't remember where they came from. It didn't occur to me. I mean, I was wearing them, and I was just once when I was wearing them, I realized that I had a hole on top.
Yeah.
And then one time I was just massaging the bottom of my thigh, and I realized there was a hole in the bottom. And I checked in the exact same hole. Could have been the jeans were folded all the way through, or...
Yeah, let's look at them before we go. Do your parents normally get up same time on the weekends? As far as 9, 10 o'clock, or 7, 8 o'clock?
Well, no, my mom usually gets up early. My dad usually a little bit later. We were basically playing tennis all summer. So it wasn't a set schedule. In the summer, usually it's different because in the wild I was traveling on tennis. And my dad usually is a late riser in the morning, although I'm even later.
Yeah.
So I like to get my sleep. So yeah, usually my mom's up though. Usually my mom's up early and my dad's up late.
You still get up in the morning? I mean, by that,
Oh yeah, no. He gets up probably like by 10 or 11. He doesn't sleep till. He doesn't sleep till.
They have a habit of falling asleep in front of the television downstairs.
No. Well, my mom would. My dad would be up. Actually, they would. Well, they'd fall asleep, but only for like maybe an hour. Usually my dad would be up watching a movie, and my mom would fall asleep in his lap. Or my mom would be up watching a movie, and my dad would fall asleep in the chair. But then, as soon as the movie was over, I mean, they wouldn't like fall asleep and wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
They may fall asleep until the end of the movie, in which case they'd get up. Yeah, but I guess one of them would get up. But not really. Like I would wake up at 6 in the morning. So.
Yeah.
now would they normally sit on that couch?
Where we found them, at least where we found my dad.
That would be consistent with it.
Yeah. That's where he was when we left. That's where he was watching TV every day. And my mom was usually right next to him. She was on the bench.
Let's just run through this real quick and we're done with it. You both entered the house that night through the front door.
Yeah.
And you went directly into the family room?
Well, yeah, I usually do. I was actually in the kitchen. I believe my brother ran upstairs and came down and went home late. There was a lot of smoke in the room. It was basically just, I don't know, I guess it wasn't a shock. There was basically just a lot of blood. Anyway.
So you went in, did you go through?
When I walked in the door, the front door,
Yeah, right.
and I just walked straight.
Walk straight into the den and you're going to go to the kitchen?
Yeah. And I guess maybe one of the reasons that I walked straight in there is because the TV was on. And sometimes they're up late, but usually when they're up late and they're going to watch TV, a lot of times they go and answer in the bedroom. And the door in the bedroom. She thinks I don't know whether to do that using it, just kept it closed. And so it was late when he came on, and so I, well, yeah, part was to see if they were upstairs to sleep or if they were still in there. The TV wasn't loud. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I take it when the police went in there.
Well, I hadn't touched the TV.
Okay, so it's the,
And from what I remember, I mean, I thought about it a million times over my mind. It wasn't loud. Did you notice the TV?
yeah. Seemed loud to me.
Seemed like,
Oh, okay, maybe it just didn't seem loud to me. Oh.
The smoke that you,
It seemed like it'd been lowered.
that's a loudness, a relevant term anyway. If it's loud, it might not be used, so.
That's true.
what you're used to. Did the smoke that you smelled when you came in, what did it smell like to you? Like your dad's pipe smoke?
No, I've been getting I have this thing where I smell the smoke every day. And when I smell the burning of the car engine, it's been overheated, it reminds me of the smoke. Every day I remember the smoke, and probably for a long time it will be. And it was just, I remember it was like my mom burned something in the kitchen. It was just a slow haze. The room was like dark yellow. And it was just like a slow, just like haze and sitting there. And I remember it smelled like, it immediately smelled to me like gun smoke from obviously when I saw it. But,
You know what kind of smoke it smells like?
well, I never really smelled it before, but now I do. I never really, if I was pretty like that, I didn't have much fun school again. No, what do you mean smell? I just assumed
What
that,
you would presume was going to smell like smell.
yeah,
It wasn't something other than, it was a foreign smell to you rather than.
it fit. It fit. I walked in the room, I saw them shot, and I just assumed that it was that smoke.
How far into the room did you get? How close to your parents did you get?
I saw them as soon as I walked in the room before the coffee table. And I was there, it seemed like a long while before Lyle got there. So I had a chance to look over it.
You walked almost straight up to the coffee table.
Oh yeah, I walked behind the sofa. I looked at him. I was like, I wasn't like I didn't throw up, and I usually don't throw up unless I'm sick. And I was just, I guess, in such shock that I wasn't crying at first. I was calling for my brother, but I wasn't going to. He didn't call me down sobbing. It was all. I was just, I guess, too much in a shock. I didn't even think that someone else could be still in the house or anything. But it didn't occur in my mind. I just couldn't believe that they were like, actually, they didn't look real. They basically were, I mean, I've never seen it really. My grandmother died in front of me. Basically, like, in an airplane, two seats facing each other. She had a heart attack in front of me. And,
How old were you?
that was 3 years ago, I think. So I guess I was 15. And that was pretty hard, especially when I took out the phone and were on the ground, so I got to let blood out. But there was no blood involved. And they didn't look real. Like I remember one thing distinctly, like my dad was shot through the left thigh.
upstairs?
Lyle went upstairs in my parents' room, and I called my coach in my room. Well, I guess he was the closest person I've been to, besides my brother. He had basically, been my best friend because he's with us every day. And he knew me better than me. I assume you talked to me. Yeah. Mark? Yeah, I did. And so I called him immediately, and then Ralph said we gotta go outside. I don't know if people know and told me that, but Bob and I haven't really discussed about really. I don't know. But yeah, then we went outside and the police were there. I have a question that I wanted to ask. I'm glad we didn't talk in the first 2 weeks because I didn't know to discuss this. That's one of the things. If I would have gone and gotten a gun when Frank Legend going, and I walked outside of the house with the gun, which if I maybe would have been in a different state of mind or something, I done because what is it? We would have just still inside the house or something like that. What would the police do?
Oh, they dropped the gun?
They wouldn't have just shot me.
No. Not after receiving the call from mine. Then the police telling me to come out. And I'm sure you wouldn't come up pointing at
No, well, they didn't tell us to come up. We walked outside the house. Oh, maybe 911 told us.
I don't know.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay, I was just curious.
Unfortunately, not necessarily that type of crime, but when our residents in that city hear noises or something and set off their alarm or they call the police in as a problem on the property, oftentimes it's people from the house. It's not uncommon.
It's not uncommon, but it would have been a little bit uncommon because of the 911.
Yeah.
The officers, they knew kind of what they were going into when they got there.
Yeah, I was just...
When, that cordless phone that's usually kept in the bar,
It's missing.
Oh, we have it.
yeah. Oh, where does the cord, I'll tell you in a minute, where does the hand part, the receiver part, you know, in the house?
Yeah, the one where you're talking to. Right, that's what's missing.
Yeah, you know where that's usually kept?
On the thing? Or right around that area.
Okay. Would it seem normal to keep it, where the L-shaped couch is, and the end closest to the bar, and have pillows all around it? Under a pillow right in that corner.
Right on the corner, like where you're sitting there, that pillow would be.
Yeah. Under that pillow.
Under?
Yeah. You know why? That's why we took it, because we took it for fingerprints. Thinking that somebody might have used it. You made a call. I don't know. It's not uncommon. It's not out of the realm of possibility. I'll put it that way. It's not all that common.
I don't know why I didn't hear it. Maybe it's fallen there earlier, but I remember that...
Did your mom's have it to have it, or your dad's have it?
Yeah, often they would...
They have it close to them, so you have to get up.
Often they may have had it on the coffee table or on the table behind the in the corner.
Yeah.
They might have it there. Most of the time it's kept on the receiver. Maybe if they were watching TV, they could have gotten a phone call. And they were supposed to order, they said they were going to order Chinese food. So possibly that's was it far away from them or was it right next to them?
Well, with the L-shaped couch, it was on this end where your dad usually sits.
It was right next to them. Oh, it was all the way
on the other side, close to the bar. I think the way the fellow was, it was purposely put under that truck.
I mean, the pill was like on top of it.
We have that, so.
Yeah, I've been thinking about it a lot, and the gate was open, the alarm was off, the door was unlocked. You think it could have been something they knew?
Well, all indications of us going into the room with the experience that he and I have is that it's somebody they knew, because it doesn't appear as either one of your parents. One struggled with them, seemed to be disturbed. Struggled. Your dad was seated on the
There
couch.
was no struggle. Which didn't make any sense to me.
As for the gate being open, Lyle's first interview, he said that he remembers taking out the little scooter earlier before you had gone to the show. And he doesn't remember shutting the gate when he came back. And you guys both on the back.
I don't think it was close. It would, likely the gate would have been closed. We left through the back just because my car was in the back. But likely, usually, and we just got in an argument the week before, like on a Wednesday or Thursday, I don't remember, about, my parents know that we're going to come back late. They closed the gate, locked the door, may not turn on the alarm until we go to sleep, but they locked the door, they closed the gate, and they turned the alarm.
They usually did not turn the alarm on until they went to sleep.
I don't know. I don't know really, because I didn't come home.
Oh, when you were home?
No, because then they wouldn't turn the alarm on when I was home until I went to sleep or something, because
So basically before they retired.
basically before they retired, my mom was really nervous lately, and she bought a gun, and
She also had to shoot.
She already had the other two guns.
yeah, exactly, and which that didn't make any sense. And when I questioned her about it, she didn't say anything. It was reported subject. And she did write a note that she found before.
What was the note about?
That it indicated that she might be expected to die. What it indicated, allowing.
Where is that note?
I love you so much. I'm like my brother. We showed it to my Uncle Brian. And my brother basically handled most of the stuff. Either he or my Uncle Brian has it. And basically saying, we love you a lot, and there's a letter somewhere. And then basically saying, there's a letter somewhere if I die. The whole thing didn't make any sense, because when we first moved into the house, we never used to close the door, gate at night. We never locked the front door. I didn't even know what the alarm code was, and it's never any problem. And then all of a sudden, I remember for a week, very adamant about closing the gate. It didn't click in my mind first, and that's why we got in a lot of arguments with the alarm. There's no reason to close it. There's no reason to let the back door open. And
That night when you left, what time did you leave the house?
you didn't know if it didn't make any sense. Rudy, the little dog, was upstairs in my mom's bedroom, and the black dog you said was outside. Right? So the dogs were always kept together.
Okay, let me tell you about the dogs. When the police officers arrived, the little dog was upstairs. The black dog they didn't see at all. Now, of course, when the police officers opened the doors, they opened the door from the living room to that your yard, rear yard court over, and open that door. So whether the black dog was up there hiding from the police officers because the black dog didn't know them from him, and the police officers didn't see him, could have been, and with the door open, it could have run outside. Because I had later seen the dog in the guest house.
I've been in a guest house earlier, and I didn't see it.
And then when you guys came, and I put Lyle in there, it wasn't in there. And then later I saw it was in the maid's quarters there. So, I don't know.
What were you thinking?
The question, what time did you leave the house for the show?
We always have to wait for a minute. Around 8:50. It was made up show.
What did you want to see?
We wanted to see licensing.
What did you end up seeing?
Batman. After the movie.
How long was the movie? What time did you have the movie?
Somewhere, I guess the late night, right? Sure. I don't know. We were supposed to go to a wine tasting in Santa Monica, but I didn't know it was in Santa Monica first, and so we went the wrong way. I thought 34th was downtown, and
34th.
34th. And then, so we got to the wine tent late. And Perry was in. So,
Do you remember what your brother wanted to talk to Perry about? Perry doesn't remember.
when did he
Or Perry didn't know, and your brother doesn't remember.
want to talk to him?
Your brother wanted to see Perry. And then your brother said it was something he wanted to tell him, and he thought he had told him, but he didn't. And he doesn't remember what.
Well, I wasn't there when Mom made the phone call to Perry. I wasn't actually. So he just told me that he was meeting Perry at the chief prefecture.
So you came home
We came home.
after not seeing Perry at the Taste of LA, the wine.
Yeah.
And you went to get some ID.
Yeah.
What name was the ID in? Your fake ID.
Well, what name?
Yeah.
What do you mean, what name was it?
In your name, or just the birth date was altered so you could swap?
No. It was one of my friend's ideas. It's an ID that just looks like it.
What's the friend's name?
What was the name of the ID? I haven't seen it yet. I would have brought it here. My cousin. Timmy.
What is it, a Chicago ID?
Got a picture on it?
Yeah. I usually do that for it. I'll probably do that show.
Are you not going to drive?
Well, I don't want to drive.
Yeah, it sounds like it's doing.
Does it really?
That's what he said just a while ago. Be prepared.
Well, if he wants to drive, maybe I'll just fly and meet him. Because we got to get some. I don't really want to stay at the house. I don't know how long. I'm not going to want to stay at the house.
I don't think so. That's a good idea.
Once the security leaves, for sure.
Is that who's there now as the security as far as the car that we see going by?
Bel Air.
Is it plain clothes now or something? We didn't see them outside. There's a silver gray Chrysler New Yorker. It's been there. It was in the driveway of the right Honda car too. Well,
That one,
the people we've seen that aren't wearing uniforms.
When did you see that?
We saw them on Thursday, that'd be Wednesday last week. Last Wednesday.
I haven't seen it, but I just
As far as in the driveway, that we didn't recognize, this one Chrysler's been there a few times.
They park in the driveway a lot
Yeah.
of times. But when I'm there, they always wear uniform. They always wear, they're supposed to wear uniform. To show that they're security guards.
Yeah, there's people there.
I'll have to call them with that. But I'm not going to want to stay at the house, you know, I'm not going to want to walk the house and go upstairs with my dad.
Where are you going to stay?
Mark wants me to stay with him for a couple of days, and I'm going to either, I've got to check with the real estate agent about leasing or renting or buying a place for the tennis court. Buying in Santa Monica, and then go rent. And so I was planning on doing that, but I don't want to spend a week and a half driving back, because last time I want to see all kinds of people. On the way back, and I stop at the airport, or stop in Chicago, or stop in Pennsylvania. You know, it's fun driving back. I'm going to get tickets, but, you know, and so, you know, I don't want to do that.
Your Ford now.
My Ford's at home. The Ford Escort's at home, and the Alfa Romeo is in the Alfa Romeo dealership.
How about your dad's Mercedes?
That's at the company.
That's a lease car.
Yeah, that's at the company. That's at the company. So, you know, other issues. So I don't know what the schedule. I guess, I mean, I don't want to, I'm not going to be able to explore this with them. I don't want to explore this. And we'll be able to explore this. So I guess we're going to go on tour.
Both of you? Yeah.
We're not the same people, so we'll go a little bit differently. I want to train for 6 months, and he wants to train for a month. And he wants to go on tour and start playing matches immediately. And I want to do it in 6 months because I don't think I'm ready. But yeah, when we go on tour, basically, we start really going on tour. We're going to go on tour in doubles and singles, and I'm pretty confident. We're both pretty good with a while that we can train. I definitely have more of an ambition to make it. I see in my, as you know, I'm sure, our family is a long line of incredibly successful athletes and incredibly successful people, self-made millionaires, and athletes. My great-grandfather was the Hall of Fame in baseball, my grandfather in soccer, my grandmother in swimming, my dad in swimming. I mean, we can't become a self-made millionaire, but we can become the one world pecs, and that was 50 to 1. And my dad was very strong about that. Success going down, and that's probably what raised us. And so, I guess it's part of the reason why Lyle wanted to go to Princeton. It's because my dad really wanted me to go to Princeton. I was fighting on it for 3 years, and so it felt really bad that when my dad was gone, that he was just going to go, yeah, I'm going to do what I want now. He said, you know, I'm going to do what my dad wants me to do. And that's a lot of what we were working after. Like he wanted to get Castro in Cuba. And so that's one of the things that I'm going to be working toward in the future. It's probably going to cause some problems, and I don't know if I'll be able to do it because of what happened in Colorado. So website political could be destroyed. But it's certainly a goal. And so I'm staying for there. I mean, I had my goals pretty well mapped out. And I wanted to go into politics. My dad wanted this too. But, you know, I want to live up to things that my dad wanted me to live up to. And I guess, you know, they say, you know, live your own life. But my own life was part of his dream. And, you know, I don't know. I think I'll just, I mean, it's already been a month, amazingly so. And I feel like it could have been a week ago.
Looks like it's something English I got.
And I still think about it 5 times a day.
Yeah, maybe.
It's not, really. But not. I don't want that to bother you.
I used to go to bed time I'm tired, so that I don't have to sit in bed and think about it. Until I'm waiting until I'm dead tired, and then I can sleep. And so it varies from 12 to 4, so I wake up late. That's going to disturb me.
Maybe by doing that, by going on tennis out, you need something else to think about. Right now, you're not really doing,
Exactly.
doing anything.
Exactly.
So you probably need that. So
Yes.
think about this.
And I want to be, I like LA. New Jersey is a dreary place.
Beautiful.
outside.
Beautiful. But we're living here, so.
What?
We trade in a second with you. We did beautiful here. Well, I'm from the East Coast. I'm from
New Jersey is beautiful. Oh, you should, because it's got, we used to live in Mountain Avenue, and 2 lakes, 78 acres, and just trees a mile drive into our house, so rolling grass, and it was a beautiful place in Princeton. And that's why part of the reason we wanted to do is go brown and get back to the East Coast. But I don't want that right now. LA needs something to pump me up a little bit more.
A little slower moving up here too.
Oh yeah.
When you went to the movie, you do the ticket stubs. You knew the ticket stubs, right?
I think we have a ticket stubs. I think we had the ticket stubs after the movies. I don't have the ticket stubs.
If you ever see them, just let me know.
Ron had the ticket stubs.
It's the same thing to maybe in the car. Your car.
Right, what could be.
Okay.
I usually just either Lyle puts in his pants, or I put in my pants, and unless they get washed out in the laundry,
Yeah, they're there forever.
they're in their granite. So when I clean out my car, I haven't cleaned out my car. I just bundle open stuff and stuff, so I could do that.
Did you have any recent problems with your parents at all?
Well, actually, we spent the whole summer together playing tennis.
That's unusual. You don't do spend the summer together playing tennis, or
No, I do.
not been?
I do. We do it every summer usually.
Yeah.
Basically, I spend every second of the day with him. And so we were pretty close right up until we get back. But no real big. My dad, in the last marriage, thought that I wasn't open enough to open enough in tennis. And so,
Sounds like it's being a difficult problem.
yeah, exactly. And he wanted to go to college, live down, and get away from them. And just try to stay away and do another thing.
Were you going to stay on campus at UCLA?
Yeah, I was going to go. You've talked to Jerry Zip.
Who?
Jerry Zip. He's a psychiatrist.
Give me the name again.
Jerry O'Zeal.
No, haven't heard that name.
I haven't heard the name.
No.
Probably kept down on purpose just because it might slip to the papers.
Nothing close to fingers.
Okay.
Who? Ozeel?
O'Zeal, O-Z-I-E-L. Definitely my psychiatrist. My parents basically made us get one after child access. And so, he's very good friend of mine. And they spend a lot of time with us after this. And so, he had many meetings with my parents together. And they thought, and 50 so I don't know what he's going to tell you. I'm sure he may be able to help you out and all.
Because now he was one that you talked to.
Yeah, my parents, he had meetings with my mom and dad together. And then these are just meetings together also.
Have you seen him after the death?
Yeah, he came over and talked to me. He's probably going to still see him.
Yeah.
I could be good.
Yeah. Yeah, it was something that would be tough for anybody, but you probably need to sit down and talk to a professional. and he probably will not give us any information because we have what they call a patient-doctor confidentiality.
Yeah.
So what I may do is have you call him and tell him it's okay to talk to us, which is all this takes, because you're the one that holds confidentiality.
He may not be able to tell you anything about parents.
No, he should still be able to do it.
Even though, really?
Yeah, because there's a confidentiality that the patient holds, that he can't give up that confidentiality.
So my parents were no personal side.
Right.
Yeah, but
Your patients aren't, your parents aren't here to,
So I'm not
aren't here to hold.
aren't here to hold the confidentiality.
Oh, okay.
So you'll be able to give up that confidentiality. So we'd like to talk to you.
Yeah. But the things that
Do you know of anyone that has keys to the house that you would file when you remember?
I think it's got a key in the house. We really together. We just left the keys lying down.
So what I'm getting at is whether anybody else had a, maybe some work people that had a key to the house that could have.
I don't think so. I don't know. I don't know if they would. I don't know, but she may have.
There's nothing going on at the house work-wise that would necessitate giving a key out.
No, I don't think so. So possibly it come in like that.
Did you get a normal allowance or we just?
Yeah, but that pretty much ended over the summer. I got about $180 a month. Exactly.
Do you have a credit card or?
Just that much. That
What do you mean by it ended over the summer?
well, when I went to play tennis and so on, I really didn't need that money. There was no, so I didn't get it home. Yeah, but I didn't know what was going to happen. I went to UCLA. So it's looking forward to it.
You and Lyle went out to get watches.
Yeah, it was wow, I couldn't answer one. His lifelong ambition was to get a little, and in fact, I think he got one, and then he turned it. Were you with him? Yeah, I was actually getting close for the memorial service. And I was at the University of Washington, so I got asked me if I wanted to. And actually, he asked me if I wanted to go on. Not to go on. My dad didn't like that, show it, and I didn't. So I celebrated with a lot. But
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have a matter that apparently has just arisen that requires a little more discussion. As you might have noted in the past, those things do happen. So we'll take a recess and give you a chance to stretch your legs or get coffee, whatever you like. And if you would return at 1:45.
I work with Goldman. They're great. They show me how to work with a lot closer to the situation. Called, what agency? St. Joseph's Center. It's just something I'm going to pursue.
Voice on both of those tapes.
Yes.
Now, on the first tape, Exhibit 128, there was some discussion about Dr. Oziel, correct?
That's correct.
Did you ever get authorization to speak to Dr. Oziel?
No.
And the first time that you had met Dr. Oziel, would it be fair to say, was when you did the search warrant on his home on March 8, 1990?
Yes, it is.
Cross-examination.
Detective Zoller, this interview on September 17th was at the home of Carlos and Teresita Baralt, correct?
That's correct.
And Teresita is the sister of Jose Menendez,
Yes, that's correct.
and Carlos is Eric's uncle.
Teresita's husband, that's correct.
Okay. And you went to the home on the 17th, actually to interview the Baralts, right?
That's correct.
Had you made arrangements to interview the Baralts prior to your arriving at their house on the 17th?
Yes, I had.
Okay, so this was something that had been arranged the day before?
I'm not sure whether it was the day before or not, but it was prior to that day.
And had you made the arrangements with Mr. and Mrs. Baralt?
Yes,
So they knew you were coming to their home on the 17th of September?
that's correct.
And did you also know at the time you went to the home on the 17th that Eric had been spending a lot of time with the Baralts?
I wouldn't characterize it as a lot of time. I know he had spent time there
Okay. He had been staying with them.
periodically.
Occasionally.
That's correct.
And in fact, when you arrived at the house, you found out that Eric was staying there at that time.
Correct.
Okay, and in fact, he was asleep upstairs when you arrived.
That's correct.
And you had his aunt go up and wake him up so that he could come down and talk to you. Is that correct?
Not exactly.
Okay, well, his aunt woke him up for you.
That's correct.
Okay. And then you had a conversation with him during the time you were at the house.
Yes.
Now, when you started talking to Eric, you began by telling him that you had spoken to a number of his friends.
That's correct.
And you named certain names of individuals that you had spoken to.
That's correct.
Okay, and he also suggested names for you to speak to.
Yes.
And you said that you had talked to various coaches, right?
Yes.
And he asked you who, correct?
That's correct.
And he also gave you names of coaches that you might talk to.
Yes.
Eric also told you in the beginning of the interview, he said something to the effect of Craig and his dad did not have a good rapport. Do you recall that portion of the tape?
Yes, I do.
And was it your understanding at that time that Eric had a friend by the name of Craig Signorelli?
Yes,
Okay, you knew of his existence.
I did.
And had you already, in fact, spoken to Craig at that time?
Yes, I had.
Okay. Were you aware at the time of this interview that Mr. Menendez had threatened to
Objection,
kill?
Your Honor. May we approach?
Yes, you may.
Did you ask any follow-up questions, Detective Zoller, about why Eric told you that Craig and his dad didn't have a good rapport?
No.
Now, Eric also talked to you during the interview about smoke in the room. Do you recall that portion of the tape?
Yes, I do.
And you were aware prior to arriving in New Jersey that Eric had reported that there was smoke, a heavy haze of smoke in the room, correct?
Yes, yes, I was aware of that.
That was something that you had, some information that you had gotten from Detective Edmonds.
Yes.
And Detective Zoller, isn't it correct that it was this mention of smoke by Eric that was one of the things that made you very suspicious of him?
One of the things, yes.
Okay. And you indicated in the beginning of the interview to Eric that you were not there to nail him. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Okay. But in fact, you were suspicious of him at the time you had this interview in New Jersey. Right?
Somewhat, yes.
And one of the things that made you suspicious was the reports of smoke that were repeated during the interview in New Jersey.
Yes.
At one point during your conversation with Eric, he mentioned a letter or a note or something that his mother had written. Do you recall that part of the tape?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And this was a note that Eric described as something about her dying.
Yes.
And is this, he also said, that he also told you that this note, he believed was in the possession of either his brother or his Uncle Brian.
That's correct. That's what he stated.
Now, do you know a person named Brian Anderson?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and do you understand that Brian Anderson is a relative of Mrs. Menendez?
Yes, her brother.
Okay, and this note that Eric spoke about, did you understand that to be a suicide note that Mrs. Menendez had left in the house and that her sons had found?
At the point that he made that statement, is
Yes.
that what you're asking?
Yes.
No, I did not take it that way.
Okay. Did you make any attempt to obtain the note that was referred to, that Eric referred to on September 17th, to find out what was in it?
I asked Eric about the note, and he stated that he would obtain the note to show us, which he never did.
Okay, but that isn't on the tape, is it?
No, it is not.
So was it sometime after the tape that you asked Eric for this suicide note?
Yes.
Or the note about your mother's death? Did you ever contact Brian Anderson and ask him if he had the note?
I don't believe I did, no.
Detective Zoller, at one point during the interview, towards the end, Eric talks about going to college. Do you recall that portion
Yes.
of the tape? Okay. And he says, but we wanted to go to college really bad. We were getting away from him, you know. And then there's an unintelligible, was trying to stay away and do other things. Do you recall Eric telling you that?
Yes.
Did you ask him any follow-up questions about who he was getting away from?
No.
Did you understand him to mean when he said we were getting away from him, did you understand that to be a reference to his father?
I don't recall.
Okay, you weren't curious about who he had to get away from?
I didn't key on it at that time, so I don't recall what my impression was of it.
And he also said that he was trying to stay away and do other things. Did you ask any follow-up questions about who he was staying away from?
No.
Now, Mr. Kuriyama also asked you about the therapist, Dr. Oziel. Now, the first time you ever heard Dr. Oziel's name was during this interview with Eric on September 17th.
That's correct.
Okay. And it was Eric who told you about him, correct?
Correct.
And Eric, in fact, spelled out his name for you.
He did.
And he told you he was in Beverly Hills.
Yes, he did.
Okay. And, in fact, you suggested at that time that you thought it would be a good idea for Eric to continue to see Dr. Oziel.
Yes, I did.
And Eric agreed with that, correct?
Correct.
And you also discussed waiving confidentiality so that you could talk to Dr. Oziel.
That's correct.
Okay. And Eric, in fact, agreed to waive confidentiality so that you could talk to Dr. Oziel. Is that correct?
Yes, he did.
Okay, thank you. I have nothing further.
Any redirect?
Thank you, Mark. Detective Zoller, did you understand Eric Menendez to be giving you authority to go to talk to this Dr. Oziel that he was seeing on September 17th? When you spoke to him?
No.
He told you that he was seeing a Dr. Oziel, a Beverly Hills psychiatrist, and he was seeing the psychiatrist because he said his parents made him, or made us, he and his brother, get a psychiatrist after the Calabasas thing. Is that right?
That's correct.
What did Calabasas thing mean to you?
It meant the Calabasas burglaries that he and Lyle were involved in.
Now, after the discussion about Dr. Oziel, you discussed with him confidentiality, correct?
Yes, I did.
Did he ever tell you, I give you my authorization to go talk to him and he can tell you all about me?
He wanted us to go talk to him, and then it went into the confidentiality issue, to which it was left that he would contact the doctor giving up his confidentiality.
Okay, so he never gave up the confidentiality to you?
That's correct.
And this occurred, this information that you gave to Eric Menendez occurred on September 17th, 1989, correct?
Yes, it was.
Is it your understanding that the confession was made by Eric Menendez on October 31st, 1989?
Objection, Your Honor. Beyond the scope of
Objection sustained.
Counsel asked you about this suicide note, or this note left by Mrs. Menendez, and directing your attention to page 20 of the transcript of Exhibit 128.
Yes, I have it.
Eric Menendez indicated to you that his mother had written a note, correct?
That's correct.
That she expected to die,
That's what it stated, what he stated.
and she had written a letter to, I guess, he and his brother. Is that
That's
accurate?
correct.
And she said that she loved them a lot,
Yes, that's what he stated.
and that Lyle or his uncle had the letter.
Yes.
I have nothing further. Your Honor.
Any recross?
Detective Zoller, regarding the confidentiality, the transcript indicates that you had a discussion, this is at page 32 at the bottom, that you had a discussion, a preliminary discussion, and you told Eric that Dr. Oziel couldn't talk to you unless he gave up confidentiality, right?
That's correct.
And you asked him, so you'd be able to give up that confidentiality? And he responds, oh. And then you say, because we'd like to talk to him. And Eric responds, okay, yeah. And that's what's on the transcript, correct?
That's correct.
There's nothing in there about anything further that Eric was supposed to do. Isn't that true?
I believe you're correct.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
Anything else?
Detective Zoller, is it your experience that if you had gone to Dr. Oziel at that point with no authorization, no written authorization, no call from Eric Menendez, telling Dr. Oziel, go ahead and tell the detectives everything, that he knew up to that point, at least September 17th, 1989, did you think you could go to that doctor and get information about Eric Menendez at that point?
Objection, cross-respect.
Are you asking what his state of mind
Yes, Your
was
Honor.
on that date?
Correct.
Okay, the objection is overruled.
I would have expected Dr. Oziel to tell me that there was confidentiality. He could not talk about any of his patients.
Thank you.
Anything else?
At that point in time, had you spoken to a therapist or psychiatrist who had been treating Mrs. Menendez by the name of Dr. Cox?
I spoke to Dr. Cox. I don't know whether I had spoken to him before that time or after that time.
And in fact, what you did was you told Dr. Cox that there was no confidentiality because Mrs. Menendez was dead. Is that correct?
In reference to Mrs. Menendez, yes.
And you were able to obtain information from Dr. Cox.
Yes.
Okay, so you, well, I will leave it at that. No further questions.
All right, anything further on that limited subject?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. Detective Zoller, Eric Menendez was not dead, was he? There was still confidentiality.
All right, the objection is that it's argumentative, is that it?
Yes, Your Honor, you read my
All right, the objection is sustained. You can rephrase the question if you like.
Was Eric Menendez dead?
Again, the same ruling.
Did the same reasoning apply to you, or in your mind, that was applied to Mrs. Menendez with respect to Dr. Cox?
The circumstances were completely different.
Thank you.
All right,
Detective Zoller, on the 17th of September of 1989, did you have a conversation with Lyle Menendez in the city of Cranberry in the state of New Jersey?
Yes, I did.
Was it at approximately 3 o'clock in the afternoon?
Yes.
And was that conversation tape recorded?
Yes, it was.
Your Honor, I have here a tape which I have previously marked as Exhibit 132. I also have a transcript of that tape which has been marked as Exhibit 133. May those be so marked at this time?
yes.
Thank you. And I have copies, 18 copies of the transcript. May I distribute those to the jurors, please? At this time, I'd like to play the tape which has been marked as Exhibit 132. I believe there's a stipulation that the court reporter need not transcribe the tape. Thank you.
Time is 3 p.m. Myself and Detective Zoller and Detective Lenningham, Beverly Hills Police Department, are conducting an interview.
To identify the voices. Detective Zoller, I've started the tape, and there's an identification by Detective Lenningham. Was he your partner at that time?
Yes, he was.
And I take it your voice also appears on this tape?
Yes, it does.
In addition, was Lyle Menendez present?
Yes.
During the period of time that you had this interview, was it inside of a residence?
Yes, it was.
And do you recall whose residence it was where this tape was made?
Yes, it was Teresita and Carlos Baral's house.
And who are Teresita and Carlos Baralt as they relate to this case, please?
Teresita is Jose Menendez's sister, and Carlos is her husband.
And at portions of this tape, is it apparent that there are other people in the household while
Yes.
the tape is made?
Yes.
Thank you. I'll continue now. I'm sorry, Your Honor.
His uncle's home in Granbury, New Jersey. I'm going to put this here because, unfortunately. Oh, he doesn't have that great of a microphone.
I was forward here, huh? I think I would write it down and concentrate on the joining me. Yeah, I don't know about that. What are you doing? What do you think, Dan? Yeah, well, it's just kind of cool. You're my friend, and I'm trying to come out and see you kind of stuff. And, yeah, I'm getting my mind up in some ways, and at the same time, I'm kind of like, I'm here, that's what I usually do, man.
Go to the show and just come home, or what?
No, yeah,
No, I know you had made arrangements to meet Terry, but
that's those kind of things that we do. We go on the show, go to the movie, and we got ready to play. That's it, man. I don't know if I'm on kind of stuff, lock the door, I forgot to see, and I had to let the open the door. I could take it.
Menendez?
Yes. During the interview of Mrs. Baralt, we had mentioned that we, and by we, it's my partner, Detective Linehan, and myself, we had not spoken to Eric or Lyle, and she had mentioned, oh, Eric's upstairs sleeping. Would you like me to wake him so you can interview him? And we said, yes.
Right. Did you interview the Baralts first, or did you proceed right to the interview with Eric?
No, we interviewed the Baralts first.
And you had a tape recorder with you when you walked into the house that day?
That's correct.
And the Baralt interview was not tape recorded, correct?
That's correct.
And then when you finished interviewing them, was Eric then brought down?
Yes.
And
No,
go ahead.
that's not correct.
What happened before?
Before Eric came down, we were still interviewing Mr. and Mrs. Baralt, and Lyle had driven up with a friend.
And did he walk into the house and see you and your partner sitting in the living room?
Yes.
And did you, at that point, indicate you wanted to speak with him?
Yes.
Did he indicate any reluctance in doing so?
No.
Did his friend stay there during the interview, or did he leave?
His friend went to another portion of the house.
And how about Eric? Where was he during the...
As far as I know, Eric was either still asleep or taking a shower, getting ready for the interview.
So is it basically true that as soon as Lyle came into the house, he sat down with you and began this interview?
Shortly after he came into the house, yes.
And did you tell him it was going to be tape recorded? In other words, this was not a hidden recording device or anything of that nature?
That's correct. Tape recorder was placed on the coffee table in front of the three of us.
And he indicated no reluctance in having it tape recorded at that time?
He indicated none, no.
And during the period of time that you were interviewing him, did Eric come down?
I believe so, yes.
And was he listening to what Lyle was saying, or did he just kind of come and go?
I don't think there was that much of an overlap as far as time's concerned.
And then when you finished with Lyle, the tape recorder went off, and you then began another interview with Eric at that point?
Yes.
Because I noticed at the end of the interview, Lyle says to you, you're asking him about, he makes a statement about Eric's gang. I don't know. Ask Eric if he'd be honest. I asked Eric if he'd be honest with me, very open with me about everything, and we're close. Do you remember that statement?
Yes.
And was he basically referring you to Eric about this gang-related thing
Yes.
that you had been talking about? By the way, the gang-related thing, which is referred to a couple of times in here, related to an incident that occurred in Calabasas in 1988, correct? Or thereabouts?
That's correct.
And had you been informed that the gang-related thing related to some incident that Eric Menendez had gotten himself into where a couple gang members had attacked him?
Yes.
You had learned that through checking for a police report out in Calabasas and discovering that in fact that had taken place?
Yes, that's correct.
And that's what's being referred to here, the gang-related thing?
Yes.
Was the possibility that the same gang that had attacked him might be involved in the killings themselves?
It was something to investigate, yes.
All right. And you had in your possession the police report at that time, where you had read the police report concerning that?
I believe so, yes.
And according to the transcript that you have in front of you and that the jury just looked at, Lyle basically referred you to Eric about that incident, correct?
That's correct.
Now, at page 19 of the transcript, do you have that there in front of you?
I do.
I think you make a statement along the lines of, that's all from somebody from either paid somebody off in the coroner's office. As far as we know, of course, we trust them as far as we trust anybody. But, they initially came out and said, oh, it looks like an OC death, and so on and so forth. What were you referring to there?
The manner of the deaths, as far as I remember, the coroner's office put out the number of shots, wounds to each victim, and then I believe gave their opinion of what they thought, who was involved in it.
In other words, the coroner's office had issued a press release indicating their opinion that it was an organized crime hit, or words along those lines?
To what I remember, that's correct.
All right, and then you also make reference in the next couple of pages, right around page 19, to a lot of media attention that was being paid to the case, correct?
Correct.
And is it true that the media attention you were referring to was the coroner's theory that it was an organized crime hit and the speculation that was going on in the media about that possibility?
I don't know whether that's what started it or not, but I know the press took off with that idea. Okay,
and there's mention at page 22 of the transcript of a person by the name of Noel Bloom. And your statement is, the news people are probably 100 investigative reporters that go out and they talk to Noel Bloom. You see that statement?
Yes.
And is that in reference to the fact that there was some speculation in the media about whether a person by the name of Noel Bloom was connected with organized crime and may have been somehow connected to the killings?
Yes.
Again, these are theories that were being bantered about in the media when you were investigating the case. And you were trying to assure Lyle in this interview of September 17th that you weren't responsible for generating that kind of publicity, basically, correct?
That's correct.
And is it true that that whole discussion about the media and what they were releasing and what the coroner was putting out there got going because Lyle seemed concerned about privacy, about keeping whatever happened private?
Yes, as indicated by one of his statements about what was released and his grandmother overhearing it or reading about it.
Okay. Page 14. There's a statement at line 13 by your partner in your presence. And your partner says, you said the day we were there, the morning you were there, you said that you slept up on the bed in the upstairs bedroom. Do you know what's being referred to there in terms of when you had a prior contact with Lyle Menendez?
I believe it was the statement that he made to Sergeant Edmonds.
The statement he made to Sergeant Edmonds or the statement he made to you at the scene you saw both Eric and Lyle come back to the house on the morning of the 21st?
I don't recall him saying that statement that morning. So he didn't make it in my presence.
Okay.
I assumed it was during the interview with Detective Sergeant Edmonds.
But your partner is saying the day we were there, the morning you were there, as if he's referring to the two of you being somewhere in the presence of Lyle Menendez, right? Would you agree that that appears to be the context?
It appears so, yes.
Okay, but you just have no recollection of
That's
that?
correct.
All right. And at page 20, lines 24 and 25, there's a statement by you. You were there later when the TV crews and all. What does that refer to?
That refers to either when he came at 5:30 in the morning or 8:30 in the morning, and the news crew was going up and down the street filming anybody that would move, basically.
And that would have been the morning of the 21st, correct?
That's correct.
You've testified about your contact with him before, I think. Do you recall that testimony?
Yes.
It's true, is it not, that as a result of that contact, you personally had some suspicions as early as the morning of August 21st? Suspicions of Lyle and Eric as possible suspects?
I think at that point there was nobody that wasn't suspicious.
But in your mind, their demeanor on that morning raised some suspicions in you, correct?
That's correct.
All right, and you still had those suspicions on September 17th when you conducted this interview, correct?
Correct.
There were several other theories that were being pursued, but one of your theories was that they were possibly involved.
I don't think that would be a true statement. They were under suspicion.
Page 20. Five, lines 18 through 21. Is that Lyle who says, I don't believe the organized crime thing until I see something?
That's correct.
And then you say that makes two of us, and your partner says makes three of us. We haven't seen any of it, correct?
That's correct.
And then on page 31, he says at the bottom of the page, at line 22, trying to teach us the value of money, but there were lots of fights. Is there any particular reason why you didn't follow up on that comment? That there were lots of fights between him and his father?
I thought it was clear that he had lots of fights about the money issue, spending money.
Okay. And on page 30, according to the transcript, you make a statement, your dad seems to like older women. Your dad seems to think that they were, and then he makes a statement. Is that correct?
I don't think that's correct, no.
What do you think you said there?
The inference of the conversation was that the girls that I previously mentioned in reference to Lyle were older women, and that his father didn't like Lyle seeing older women.
So when the transcript says your dad seems to like older women, you're probably saying there your dad seems not to like older women?
Not to like you with older women.
All right, and that was information you had obtained from the women themselves that you mentioned on the previous page, that is Jamie, Christy, and Arlene?
Not,
I
necess-
would object that if you hearsay.
not necessarily with speaking with them in person, but about them.
Okay. And on page 27, Lyle says that he met with a banker. Was there some reason why you didn't ask him who the banker was? Why you weren't interested in that?
Who are you referring to as far
This
as?
is line 6.
For what I remember the context of the statement, it was just a statement in passing. I didn't really think that he was actually seeing a banker. That was my impression at the time, I believe.
All right, and then on page 26, line 24, there's a statement that says, he's very confident. And it sounded to me like he was saying he's very powerful. Do you remember which one it was?
I don't.
Now, at some point, you questioned him about hiring bodyguards, correct?
That's correct.
And he says to you at page 32, line 23, some security people felt that one of them was FBI. Do you recall that statement?
Yes.
And that he had not continued with them because it was too expensive, he wasn't going to pay for it.
That's correct.
And the company had stopped paying for it.
That's what he said. That's correct.
And he then gave you the name of the security company, was D.B. Kelly, correct?
That's correct.
And based on him giving you that name, you then went and did some further investigation and spoke to Mr. Wenskowski, who testified here.
I don't know whether I had spoken to him before that or after that.
And did you also speak to a driver, a limo driver or a security driver who indicated to you that he had stated to Wenskowski that there was an FBI, he suspected there was an FBI person following him around?
Objection calls for hearsay.
You did interview Mr. Wenskowski, though?
That's correct.
And based on information he gave to you, did you interview a person named Richie, who is a limo driver?
Yes.
And based on information that you obtained from him, did you feel you had corroboration of the statement of Lyle's that a limo driver had said something about an FBI person following him?
Objection calls for hearsay still.
Now, based on the content of this tape, did you feel that Lyle was trying to pretend that it was an organized crime hit, based on the statements he made to you?
No.
In fact, he was indicating just the opposite, wasn't he?
That's correct.
And at any point in time, did you ask him if there was anything missing from the house?
I know that the issue of the camera came up, the video camera, and I don't know whether it was during this time or not. I believe it was.
Was there anything that he said to you that made you think he was trying to make you feel that a burglary had taken place and that there was lots of property missing?
No, he just indicated that the video camera was missing.
On page 33, line 14, that part of the transcript or the tape is hard to hear, but you're making a statement about, sounds like he was very serious, but the hospital wanted to talk to him while we were in New York, and he wouldn't speak to us because he was in the hospital, said he was sick. Who are you referring to there?
I don't recall his name. He was the prior owner of Strawberries, which is a record company that the company that Jose was in bought out.
Was that Morris Levy?
Yes.
By any chance?
Yes.
Okay, so you had gone to a hospital in New York, and that was basically a lead you were following up from this organized crime information that was in the media?
We wanted to talk to him, and we found out that he was in the hospital. We phoned the hospital to see whether we could interview him, and he denied us access to come to the hospital for an interview.
Thank you. That's all I have, thank you.
I have one question. Detective Zoller, you indicated that when Lyle Menendez came to the house that he had a friend with him. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Do you know who the friend was?
Yes, I do.
Who was it?
Greg Guest.
Thank you, sir.
Can we approach this for 1 second? Detective Zoller, I just had a couple more questions. Did there come a time when, near the end of your interview with Eric Menendez, where he walked back into the room?
Yes.
And at that time, did you and your partner have a further discussion with him about the Rolex watch that you had questioned him about earlier in the interview?
Yes.
And at that time, did you, without going into it in detail, basically indicate to him, caution him not to wear the watch when he was in LA because people often got robbed of Rolex watches?
Yes.
And at that time, did you tell him that people who rob those watches often sell them for $2,500?
Yes.
And in response to that statement by you or your partner, did he say something to the effect of, oh yeah, where could I sell mine for $2,500?
Yes, that's correct.
That's all I have, thank you.
At the time that you had the conversation with Lyle Menendez about the Rolex watch, was he wearing it?
Yes, he was.
And do you remember what color it was? Was it silver or gold?
It was gold.
Thank you.
Anything else? No. All right.
Detective Zoller, on the first Friday of March of 1990, did you go to a restaurant in the Princeton, New Jersey area?
Yes.
And was that the restaurant which was known to you as Mr. Buffalo's?
Yes.
And when you went to that restaurant that day, did you go with anyone else?
I did.
Who did you go with?
I went with my partner, Detective Tom Linehan, and Richard Wenskowski, and his partner, John Aquero, I believe is the spelling, or the pronunciation.
It's A-Q-U-A-R-O, is that correct?
Yes.
And while you were there, did you make any inquiries about Lyle Menendez?
No.
Okay. Did you make your presence as a police officer there known?
Yes.
Thank you. I have no further questions in front of this jury right now.
Any cross on that
No, Your
subject?
Honor.
All right, then we'll now have the Lyle Menendez, strike that, the Eric Menendez jury out as well, the blue jury, and they'll come to the jury box, and we'll now proceed with evidence being offered as to both defendants. All right, and the Eric Menendez jury is in court as well, and good afternoon to you, and again, I'll apologize for the delay, but give you a preview of what it's like when you are in the jury room during deliberations, at least as far as the confinement that you experienced during the deliberations. The fact that when deliberations start, 12 jurors will go into the jury room, and instead of talking about whatever you were talking about today, you'll start talking about the case. So I apologize for the delay, but there were things that the lawyers and I had to resolve, and we're now ready to proceed. We have both juries in the courtroom, and we have Detective Zoller on the witness stand. You may examine the witness.
Detective Zoller, when you first testified in this case, I believe one of the things you testified to was the collection of evidence at the crime scene. Do you remember that testimony?
Yes, I do.
And I put up a series of photographs that had some numbers that looked like printed numbers, and the three photographs on the board, which are 25, 26, and 30, are representatives of the photographs that you testified about when you first testified. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, I believe that I asked you questions about collecting wadding and pellets at the crime scene. And do you recall that testimony?
Yes, I do.
There were three items of evidence that were collected and numbered at the crime scene, which are depicted in these photos on the board, which were not wadding or pellets. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Number 7, which is shown up on that board, it looks like it's on some sort of blanket. Was that just a piece of white cloth that was collected?
Yes.
And that's exhibited in photograph 25. The next photograph, which appears to be of some sort of sofa or chair with a pillow in it, there appears to be a number 9 and a number 8. I'm going to ask you about just number 9. What piece of evidence is that supposed to depict in photograph 26? What does number 9 stand for?
Number 9 is the handheld portion of a cordless telephone, which you can see just the point of the antenna sticking out to the left of the pillow.
And so that handheld telephone was in fact found behind the pillow, which is depicted in this photograph 26. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And then the last piece of non-ballistics type evidence that was recovered is depicted in photograph 30. It has a marker next to it, number 16. And I believe there was some testimony about this, but that was just a piece of white plastic. Is that correct?
Yes,
And I think you testified earlier you thought it was part of a bracelet.
that's correct.
Now, moving ahead to another exhibit that I believe we've had some testimony about. This is exhibit number 19. It is a Xerox copy of some U.S. Sprint records, and I believe you testified previously that this is something that you came across in your investigation dealing with a phone call made from the Santa Monica Civic. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And this particular item, exhibit 19, has on it a phone number which was called from that area. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And counsel, will you stipulate that the phone number which is on exhibit 19, which is area code 213-657-8190, was Perry Berman's phone number on August the 20th of 1989?
Yes.
So stipulated? Yes. Thank you. The early morning hours of August the 21st of 1989, you became the primary investigator into the deaths of Jose and Mary Louise Menendez, correct?
That's correct.
The following Friday, August the 25th, did you attend a memorial service for Mr. and Mrs. Menendez?
Yes, I did.
Could you tell us approximately what time of day it was and where it was?
I don't remember the exact time. I have an impression it was around the noon hour.
All right, so midday?
Yes.
Could you tell us where it was conducted?
It's on Sunset Boulevard in Hollywood at the Screen Actors Guild.
And do you recall seeing either or both of the defendants at that memorial service?
Yes.
How many were there? How many of the defendants?
Both defendants were there.
Do you have a memory as to either one of them speaking to the audience during the memorial service?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd like to approach. All right, the objection is overruled. The answer will stand, but you may approach.
Detective Zoller, do you have a memory of either one of the two defendants speaking to the audience at the memorial service?
Yes, I do.
And what is your recollection as to who spoke?
Eric spoke at the service.
And that was on August the 25th of 1989, is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, do you recall that in 1989 there was a Labor Day, correct?
Yes.
And do you remember what the date was of that Labor Day?
Yes, I do.
What was it?
September 4th.
And that was Monday, September the 4th?
Yes.
Your Honor, I have here two exhibits I'd like to mark as exhibits next in order. I think we're at 140 and 141? Yes. Okay, 140 is a copy of a life insurance policy along with an affidavit. And I have two copies of that. And also, Exhibit 141 is a copy of two wills, one for Mary Louise Menendez and one for Jose Enrique Menendez. I have two copies of each of those. Detective Zoller, sometime during your investigation, did you become aware of the fact that there was a life insurance policy on the life of Jose Menendez with the Sun Life Assurance Company of Canada?
Yes.
Okay, and may I approach, please, Your Honor?
Yes.
Through various phone calls, did you cause a copy of that policy to be sent to the district attorney's office this year?
Yes, I did.
Counsel, would you stipulate that Exhibit 140 is a true and correct business record of the Sun Life Assurance Corporation?
Yes.
Yes. And would you further stipulate that the information contained in the affidavit of Ms. Bonina is correct information?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. Just briefly, from looking at this affidavit, does it appear that approximately $325,000 was paid to each of the defendants as a result of this policy?
Yes.
In addition, I take it during your investigation, did you become aware of the fact that there was a will for each of the parents?
Yes, I did.
And the copies that I have here, Exhibit 141, does this appear to be a copy of the two wills that you were able to discern belonged with the Menendez estate?
Yes.
Counsel, will you stipulate that these two wills are in fact the two wills that were admitted to probate in the estate of Jose Menendez and Mary Louise Menendez?
Yes.
And just briefly, do these two wills leave the estate to the two defendants in the event that both of the parents are deceased?
Yes.
Detective Zoller, on December the 5th of 1989, in the course of your investigation, did you go to the Menendez home at 722 North Elm Drive in order to retrieve a computer?
Yes, I did.
And were you present when Mr. Whitcomb testified and identified a computer in a photograph, which I believe is photograph 63?
I was present.
All right. And did you, in fact, go into the same room identified by Mr. Whitcomb on December the 5th?
Yes.
When you went into that room, did you take custody of the computer, which was in the master bedroom?
Yes, I did.
In addition to taking custody of the computer, did you find a document there while you were taking the computer?
Yes.
And could you tell us briefly what the document was?
The document was the receipt of Howard Witkin with his company name, and I located it on top of the television in that room.
Right, may I approach, please, Your Honor?
Yes, we have again, is this September or December 5th?
This is December 5th, I'm sorry.
Is that right? December the 5th?
That's correct.
Okay.
Right, now I'm going to show you Exhibit 64, which appears to be an original receipt. Is that the receipt that you took from the master bedroom?
Yes, it is.
And I'm just going to briefly show you photograph 63, which is fairly small. That is the photograph about which Mr. Witkin testified.
It is.
And that is the room in which you seized the computer, which is located at the far corner of the room.
That's correct.
And this receipt, Exhibit 64, where was that within the room?
It was located on the television, which is depicted on the right side of the photo, approximately in the middle of the photo.
Okay, so there's a large TV, it looks like at least a 27-inch TV about, and there's a VCR on top.
That's correct.
And where was this Exhibit 64, the computer receipt?
It was either on top of the television or on.
And after you found that receipt, did you in fact contact Mr. Witkin on the 11th of December of 1989?
That's when I first interviewed him, was the 11th.
And that was the first time you knew who he was? Or did you know about him a couple days before?
I knew about him a couple days prior.
Detective Zoller, did you ever find any shotguns which were affiliated with this case? Did you ever find the 2 shotguns?
No.
Sometime during the first full week of March of 1989, did you meet a woman named Judalyn Smith?
Yes, I did.
And subsequent to that, did you write and execute a search warrant at the home of Dr. Oziel?
Yes.
Now, after you spoke to Ms. Smith and you went to Dr. Oziel's home, did you make an effort to locate a store where shotguns had been purchased?
Yes, I did.
Prior to meeting Ms. Smith and the execution of the search warrant, had you made any efforts to locate shotguns?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
And briefly, without going into a blow-by-blow account, could you tell us what efforts you made before that time to find the shotguns?
First of all, I contacted the Department of Justice, which is the governing agency for federal firearms licenses in the state of California, and I asked them for gun stores in an approximate 10-mile radius around the city of Beverly Hills and Calabasas. I got a printout of those stores, and I proceeded to go to those stores, interview, and go through their gun records.
And I take it that search was fruitless, is that correct?
That's correct.
After speaking with Ms. Smith and after the execution of the warrant, did your search lead you to the San Diego area?
Yes, it did.
And when you went down there, did you have a list of stores, again, provided by the Department of Justice?
Yes, I did.
And did you concentrate your efforts in locating the store where the guns had been purchased?
That's correct.
How many days did it take you before you found the information?
2 full days with 4 investigators working on it.
And could you tell us how it was that you came to the Big Five store about which Miss Amanda Adams Geyer testified?
Just one of the stores on my list, and I just went into the store.
And what did you do? What did you ask them?
I asked them to explain my investigation and asked to review their gun records.
And now when you talk about the gun records, were those the gun records about which Miss Geyer testified?
Yes, it is.
And going through the gun records, did something catch your attention?
Yes.
What caught your attention?
The receipt with Donovan Goodrow's name on it purchasing 2 shotguns.
And at that time, you had already been apprised that Mr. Goudreau was a friend of Lyle Menendez, is that correct?
Yes.
So you recognized the name?
Yes, I did.
And you seized those records?
Yes.
Your Honor, I have Exhibit 52. I'd like to approach, please.
Yes.
Exhibit 52 contains, I believe, 3 pieces of paper, but they're marked as 4 because one of them has a backside. Are these, in fact, Exhibit 52A through D, the records that you seized after your second weekend in or your second day in San Diego?
Yes.
Now, approximately how many gun stores in the Los Angeles area did you visit before your search led you down to San Diego?
I don't know an exact number. I would just be guessing.
Well, was it more than 10?
It was close to 100 stores.
And when you went to these stores, were you limiting yourself to a certain area? In other words, were you geographically, were you limiting yourself?
Yes.
And were these stores that sold shotguns?
Yes, they were.
Did you not go to stores, and did you eliminate stores that didn't sell shotguns?
To the best of our ability before we traveled there, yes.
After you found Exhibit 52 with Donovan Goudreau's name on it, did you attempt to locate the address which was listed in that document, which was 63 August Street?
Yes, I did.
And what did you do? Did you have a Thomas guide?
First of all, I had a Thomas guide and looked up the street,
And did you actually go to the street?
and I went to the street of August Street in San Diego.
Did you see an address of 63 August Street?
No, the only 100 block that they had of August Street in San Diego was the 5,000 block.
When you went to San Diego, well, you've lived in Los Angeles for a while, correct?
That's correct.
With the best traffic conditions, how long does it take to drive to San Diego from the Beverly Hills area?
Approximately 2 hours.
Now, after you found the gun records in this case down at the Big Five store in San Diego, did you ever locate the shotguns?
No, I did not.
On March the 8th of 1990, some several months after you first were assigned to this case, I believe you testified that you participated in the execution of a search warrant at Dr. Oziel's home. Is that correct?
That's correct.
At that time, were tapes recovered from a safe deposit box?
Yes, they were.
And when those tapes were recovered, were they handled as pieces of evidence in a certain way? In other
Yes,
words-
they were.
All right. And could you tell us what happened to those tapes after they were seized?
Well, they were seized as confidential recordings or pieces of evidence, and they were taken immediately into the possession of Gary Mogul, who was the special master.
Okay. Could you tell the jury what a special master is briefly?
I'm going to object to this, irrelevant.
A special,
Well, could I ask a leading question then?
yes,
Okay. Is a special master someone who attends a search warrant in special situations?
yes,
And did he, in fact, have control then of the tapes after they were seized?
yes, he did.
In addition to having control of the tapes, did he also take control of exhibits 97, 98, and 99? And I'll show them to you so you know what they are. 97 are various ledger pages about which Dr. Oziel testified in her presence, correct?
That's correct.
And then 98 and 99 are appointment books for the years 1989 and 1990. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And as well as the tapes that you've testified to, did Mr. Mogul also take custody of these items, 97, 98, and 99?
Yes, he did.
To your knowledge, from the home, or from the location where these items were seized, were they then taken to court?
Yes.
And they were not in police custody, is that correct?
They were never in police custody.
Now, the first time that you had access to Dr. Oziel's tape from October 31st and November 2nd, could you tell us what month and year that was?
All right.
So, Detective Zoller, on March the 8th, the tape and the appointment books and the ledgers were all taken by Mr. Mogul to the courthouse, is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, on March the 8th, was Lyle Menendez arrested for the murders of his parents?
Yes, he was.
And in the early morning hours of March the 11th, 3 days later, was Eric Menendez arrested for the murders of his parents? Or was it the 10th? The early morning hours of the 11th.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Detective Zoller, as to the photographs that are behind you there, what is item number 8, which is depicted in the photograph in the center in the board next to you and the one in the middle in the board next to the jury that's in the audience?
It's an individual pellet, which is just to the left of the stanchion that has the number 8 written on it.
And is it true that on the night that you were at this scene, that you were the one in charge of supervising the collection of the evidence?
To a broad sense, yes.
And in the broad sense of documenting where it came from and writing up the reports that documented the specific locations where the items were?
No, I did not do that.
Did you prepare a report which indicated the items of property that were taken from the residence that night?
If you could show me the report,
Sure.
please.
I've had marked on as exhibit number 142, set of documents entitled Evidence and Property Record. Yeah, approach you with the show.
Yes,
Showing you exhibit 142, do you recognize that document?
I do.
Hey, could you tell us what that is?
It's, as it's labeled, it's an evidence and property record.
And does that record accurately record all the items of evidence that were seized from the Menendez residence on August 20th, 1989?
To my best knowledge, yes.
And are there other documents in that package?
all pertaining to the same collection of evidence.
In other words, that packet of documents accurately reflects, number one, the items that were taken by you or people working under you that night, correct?
Correct.
And it also accurately represents where they were taken from in the room.
That's correct.
There are measurements in there that indicate accurately where each item was taken, correct?
That's correct.
Including the items that are depicted in the photographs that are behind you.
Yes.
Is that right? Now, turning your attention to the two wills, that's exhibits 141 and 142.
Yes.
Who was named as the executor of each of those wills?
I'd have to review them again,
Do you
please.
have those in front of you?
I do not.
Perhaps you can point them to the paragraph.
Let me answer your question.
Yes.
Carlos and Teresita Peralt.
And is there also in each of the wills a provision that Lyle Menendez could be named executor of each of the wills upon his turning age 22?
That's correct.
And where did you, if you did, obtain those wills from? Did you physically get those from someone?
I physically got them. I'm not sure whether I got them from Mr. Goldberg, who's an attorney for the estate, or whether they were given to me by Mr. and Mrs. Peralt.
In other words, you interviewed both Mr. and Mrs. Peralt and the executor for the estate,
That's correct.
and either one or the other gave you a copy of those wills, correct?
That's correct.
And you read the wills, I take it?
I did.
And at some point, did you obtain any documentary evidence to indicate that Lyle Menendez exercised his rights under the will to become the executor?
I received no such information.
To your knowledge, does any such information exist?
Not to my knowledge.
Now, I think you said on December 5th, 1989, you took possession of the receipt from Howard Whitman, correct?
That's correct.
And you interviewed Howard Whitman on December 11th, is that true?
That's true.
Is it true that the day that you obtained the document from the Menendez residence with Howard Whitman's name on it, you had a search warrant in your possession?
That's correct.
And that was a search warrant authorizing you to go into the Menendez home and seize evidence of the computer and any documents, such as the receipt with Mr. Whitman's name, correct?
That's correct.
Did you obtain that search warrant on that day, that is December 5th, 1989?
I did.
And you obtained that search warrant after an article was written in the Los Angeles Times on that very morning, correct? Indicating that there was some suspicion by members of your department that there was a problem with the will?
That's correct.
And that article in the Los Angeles Times would have been published the morning of December 5th before you obtained the search warrant?
That's correct.
And is it true that on the same morning after that article was published that you received an anonymous call from someone who apparently had read the article and said they had been...
Objection, Your Honor, calls for hearsay.
This goes to his state of mind for the non-hearsay purpose of showing what he did
Then it's
after
irrelevant.
receiving the information.
The objection is sustained. The issue is what he did, not what information he had. Objection is sustained.
Did you receive, without going into the content of it, did you receive an anonymous call after that article appeared in the Los Angeles Times on December 5th?
I did.
And did the article itself indicate that your department was investigating the possibility of a second will being erased?
Yes.
And as a result of that article being published, did you feel it was important on that date to get a search warrant for the Menendez home?
Yes.
And did you, when you interviewed Mr. Whitkin later on the 11th, find out that he had been in the Menendez home on August 31st, 1989?
Yes.
And when you went to serve the search warrant on December 5th, did you find the receipt in plain view on the top of a television right next to the computer where Mr. Whitkin later told you he had been working?
It wasn't exactly right next to it, but I found it on the television probably 10 to 15 feet away from the computer.
And it was in plain view, was it not?
It was.
In other words, you didn't have to tear the house apart to find it. It was right there on the top of the television?
That's correct.
Said at some point you went to San Diego and retrieved the gun records, correct?
That's correct.
And in the store where you retrieved those gun records, were there surveillance cameras?
Yes.
And were those positioned above where the gun counter was?
Yes, they were.
You testified to various documents that you retrieved in the case, including the wills, correct?
That's correct.
Did you also at some point retrieve two purchase agreements which had previously been marked as exhibit number 56 and exhibit number 57 are two condominiums in New Jersey.
That's correct.
And do you remember when you received those documents?
I don't remember the date.
And I've had Marcus defendants next in order a purchase agreement and a cover letter dated March 29, 1990.
This is exhibit 143.
Detective Zoller showing you exhibit 143. Do you recognize that document?
I do.
Is that a cover letter that you received in the mail along with a purchase agreement which is attached to that for another condominium in New Jersey?
That's correct.
And is that a condominium that was purchased by Mr. and Mrs. Menendez sometime in July or August of 1989?
That's correct.
Two photographs accurately depict the interior of the Big Five gun store where you retrieved the gun purchase records that you've testified about,
Yes.
showing the placement of the surveillance camera.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Cross-examination on behalf of Eric Menendez.
I want to put up those photographs. Why don't I ask you first to look at 145? And it does appear from that photograph that the surveillance camera in the Big Five in San Diego points at the gun handle.
Yes.
And did you, when you were at this location, determine whether or not those cameras were meant to record gun purchases?
Yes, I did determine that.
Now, when were these photographs, what month and year were these two photographs taken by yourself? You don't know?
No, I took our photographer down to take them.
Okay. When were those photographs taken?
Again, I'd have to guess. It was after we obtained the gun records. I'm going to guess and say approximately 2 months afterwards,
May, perhaps?
perhaps.
But they were not taken in August
Of which year?
of any year?
That's correct.
Okay. So they were not taken at the beginning of the game hunting season, which begins in
That's correct.
August. Were you aware during the week of August 21st to August 26th that various members of the Menendez and the Anderson families were in Los Angeles?
Objection Vegas, which year?
1989.
I can only state that I know they were, that's a correct statement.
You did know they were?
Yes.
And at the memorial service that you attended on Sunset Boulevard, did you meet and talk to members of the Menendez and the Anderson family?
No.
You didn't contact anyone there?
No, I did not.
Did you see Dr. Oziel there?
I didn't know who Dr. Oziel was at that time, and I saw a lot of people. I don't know whether I saw him or not, because I didn't know who he was.
Did you, prior to the memorial service, meet with any of the family members either at the Elm Drive residence, at the Bellage Hotel, or at the Bel Air Hotel?
Could you repeat the question as far as,
That objection is being compound and has to be broken.
All right. Why don't you rephrase it?
Did you meet, first of all, did you meet with or talk to any of the Menendez and Anderson family members during that week of August 21st through August 26th, 1989?
yes,
And did you meet with any of these persons at the Elm Drive residence? Obviously excluding Eric and Lyle Menendez, okay?
at the Elm Drive residence, that's correct.
And do you recall who you met with there?
The only ones I can recall are Teresita Baralt, Carlos Baralt, and Maria Menendez, the grandmother.
Did you meet with or see any of the members of the family at the Bellage Hotel where they were staying?
I don't believe so, no.
Did you meet or see any members of the family at the Bel Air Hotel where they were meeting?
No.
Did you see any of them at the Beverly Hills Police Department?
In that period of time, I don't recall. I know that Carlos Baralt came to the police department, I believe, one time.
As of Labor Day, September 4th, 1989, were you already acquainted with Craig Signorelli?
Yes.
Had you left him a business card or some method by which to contact you when you made his acquaintance?
Whether it was a business card or just give him my name and number, I did give him some method to get hold of me.
Thank you. Were you aware of the memorial service and funeral that was held in New Jersey?
Yes.
And do you know what day that was?
I believe it was the following Sunday,
Following what?
following the deaths and following the Los Angeles memorial service.
So it would have been the 29th? The 27th?
That, I believe so.
Did you attend the memorial service in New Jersey?
I did not.
Did anyone from your department attend?
No.
Were you aware of the fact that Eric and Lyle had left Los Angeles to go back to New Jersey
At what point?
prior to that memorial service in New Jersey?
Yes, I was aware of that.
Were you in contact with Eric or Lyle while they were in New Jersey after August 25th? Between August 25th and Labor Day?
No, I was not.
Were you in contact with any members of the family between August 25th and Labor Day?
Other than the phone?
No, even including the phone.
I don't believe so, no.
You indicated that you looked for shotguns, not for shotgun purchases, but for actual shotguns. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And when did you first look for shotguns?
The exact date I don't recall. It was after the 8th of March of 1990.
When was it that you conducted this survey of gun stores within a 10-mile radius of Beverly? You mean, I guess, a 10-mile circumference around Beverly Hills?
That's correct.
Okay. When was it that you conducted that canvass of gun stores?
Between September of '89 and February of 1990. I don't have an exact date. It actually was a long, involved process that took many weeks.
You arrested Eric Menendez on March 11th, 1990.
That's correct.
Where did you arrest him?
At Los Angeles International Airport.
And was he, did you know he was going to be there? Was there an arrangement for you to meet him?
Yes, there was.
And was it your understanding that he was flying in from Europe to surrender to you?
Objection calls for hearsay.
Overruled. That's correct.
You did not have any kind of extradition warrant for him or any extradition proceedings to bring him back from Europe, did you?
No.
He came voluntarily.
That's correct.
It was your understanding that at the point when Lyle was arrested, Eric was in Israel. Is that right?
That's correct.
And has Eric been in custody from that moment that you arrested him on March 11th, 1990 to this moment?
Yes.
I might have a moment, John. Where was he physically?
I didn't physically arrest Lyle Menendez.
Other members of the Beverly Hills Police Department did?
That's correct.
Wasn't, as the investigating officer, you aware of where he was arrested?
Yes.
And wasn't it in Beverly Hills?
He was leaving the residence in Beverly Hills, yes.
The Elm Drive residence?
That's correct.
I have nothing further, Your Honor.
Any redirect?
Yes, just a moment. Just a couple questions. Detective Zoller, the property report that shows the collection of evidence which the defense marked as Exhibit 142, was that prepared by you or by someone else?
By someone else.
And you were asked by Mr. Byrd if to your knowledge, Lyle Menendez had ever exercised his right to be the executor of the estate. Is that correct?
That's correct.
To your knowledge, were portions of the probate file sealed?
I have no knowledge of that.
You indicated that you went to a memorial service on August the 25th of 1989. Could you give us an approximation of how many people were at the memorial service?
I'm going to guess 100 to 200 people.
All right. And you were asked if you actually looked for the shotguns. Could you tell us what measures you took to actually go and locate shotguns, in this case, the physical shotguns?
With a group of officers from the Beverly Hills Police Department, we looked on either side of Mulholland Drive from approximately 1 mile east of Coldwater Canyon to approximately 5 miles west of Coldwater Canyon.
How many occasions have you gone out to Mulholland Drive looking for the guns?
Myself and other officers approximately 5 times.
And did you go as recently as this spring to look for the guns?
No,
Did you go to an area where some new houses are being built this spring?
that's correct.
And did you again look for the shotguns?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I have nothing further.
Anything else?
I just have one question. Where are new houses getting built on Mulholland?
Well, it's not on Mulholland. It's an area at the end of, I don't remember the street, whether it's a new development that goes to the backside of the development to Mulholland. It might be San Ysidro.
How far east or west of Coldwater is this area?
It's approximately a half mile west of Coldwater.
All right, if council would approach briefly here.
Your Honor, could I ask the district attorney one question?
Sure.
I have one more question.
All right.
Detective Zoll, I believe you were asked on cross-examination about the cameras that are depicted in the photographs which have been marked by the defense.
That's correct.
Okay. And I believe you were asked to make a determination about them, but nobody asked you what the determination was. Could you tell us what the determination was about those cameras?
Well, Your Honor, objective for the question, wasn't it?
Yeah, nobody actually asked what happened with those cameras or whether pictures were taken, anything of that nature, so
Well, let me
you have
ask
to
him.
go into that, please.
Let me ask him.
I assume that's what you're asking.
Yes, Detective Zoller, did you know whether those were real cameras or fake cameras?
Yes, I determined that they were fake cameras.
Thank you.
All right.
Is there a sign on those cameras for the customers that says, these are fake cameras, we're not really taking your picture?
No, there is not.
Okay, and in looking at them from a layman's perspective, they look real, don't they?
That's the purpose. That's correct.
Did Big Five explain why they don't have real ones?
No, they did not.
We think they're just too cheap or something? Okay.
All right, anything else?
If you've been impacted by a true crime and would like your story told in your own words, or if you or someone you know has been wrongfully convicted or accused of a crime, please write to crimeincourtchannel@gmail.com and tell us your real true crime encounters. Thanks for watching.